I joined the Whitechurch Ballyboden branch in 1968, and in the same year I met Mervyn Taylor, because he'd joined with his wife the Temple Oak branch, and because of the crossover of areas, we met a few times to sort things out, which we did, and I developed a friendship with Mervyn and his wife from that point onwards. I've always puzzled about the relationship, because here I was, a working class boy, yes, with plenty of training and so on and so forth, but he was a solicitor. In the first years of joining the party, he had in the Irish press, the Sunday press, he had answering questions on legal issues.
He was increasingly a very powerful member at local level on behalf of the Labour Party, an extremely powerful guy and very conscientious, as was his wife. They were a great team, the two of them together.
When he was appointed by Dick Spring as Minister for Equality, it was a breakthrough. It was a breakthrough for the government and for the country, I would say, and certainly for the Labour Party. And it was totally appropriate that the Labour Party would have the Ministry of Equality, but it was also entirely appropriate that it would be Mervyn Taylor who was Minister for Equality. He really made a difference.
Like anyone who was involved in the Labour Party from the late 80s onwards and into the 90s, I have hugely fond memories of Mervyn Taylor, and also deep respect for him and the immense legacy he leaves as the champion of equality legislation, as the first Minister for Equality and Law Reform, as a pioneering legislator and minister.
As a very young girl growing up in Ireland, I grew up in the shadow of the work that Mervyn Taylor did. I think there are very few people who have had such a transformative effect on Irish society, but particularly women. Things like extending maternity rights, the Equal Status Act, the Employment Equality Act, and not to mention allowing women and parents to have a second chance by introducing the divorce referendum. It had a transformational effect and was very much the leader into the forefront of the modern Ireland that we're all so proud of.
He was committed to ensuring that Irish society would be open to everybody and anybody who wanted to be here. Whatever their background was, whatever their orientation was, they were citizens and had the same right as citizens as anybody else had. There wasn't an inner core of people who were purer than pure or something along those kind of lines. But he was also, given his professional background, he was very meticulous about getting things right and getting the detail and searching out the extra bits of change that could happen, that wasn't going to ever happen if it wasn't for Mervyn Taylor. And I think he had 6, 7, 8 or 9 different pieces of legislation that have his name on them, which wouldn't have occurred if it hadn't been for his combination as a lawyer and as a very radical man with a very easygoing, very country-type doctor, country-type solicitor that you would sort of walk past or take no notice of. But by Jesus, if you got close to him and started to look for things to happen, do them in a particular way, Mervyn was your man.
He left a legacy, and I think probably he was, in many ways quite unique in his contribution. He was very, very well regarded, and he was very popular among his colleagues. He also had a cautious side to him. I remember, now this would have been the 80s, I was in my 20s, and I was coming down the corridor here in Leinster House one day, and I met Mervyn, and I said, "Mervyn, what time is it?" And he said, "Why do you want to know?" which I thought kind of summed up Mervyn the lawyer as well, balancing one and the other, and really kind of exploring like a simple question: what time is it? Why do you want to know? That's one of my memories of Mervyn as well.
When I think of Mervyn Taylor, I think of a fighter for equality and somebody who was dogged and delivered.
When I think of Mervyn Taylor today, quite a few words come to mind as describing him best. Words including champion of equality, progressive, a law reformer, a committed and passionate campaigner for more equality, for greater equal rights for all in society.
The humanity of the man is something that it's worth telling this story because it's my favourite story. It's from the 1987 election. We were in trouble because the government fallen, the statistics coming in were diabolical, and it was going to be tight. And I was secretary at the Dublin Regional Council, and I wrote to everybody asking everyone in Dublin to give us an extra day if they could, to give us a day out of their own campaign to come over to Tala and help Mervyn Taylor. 250 people arrived over that week, which made a huge contribution to the campaign. And when we went down to the RDS when we were doing the count, you know, it was all doom and gloom from the press and from everybody else. But when we saw the figures coming through, we knew we were okay. And when we left the count, we came across Balls Bridge, and one of my vans, the HP ice cream vans, was passing at the time, and I gave him a shout, and I'll call him over. And I asked Mervyn what he wanted, and his favourite ice cream was a Feast. And the man I got the man to give me a box of Feast, so everyone that was there could have a feast. And I then got another box off him and brought it into the local shop because I didn't want him to be feeling bad over me giving out free products out on the road, you know. And he was so human then. He was like a kid, big kid with his feast, you know.